And welcome back to another episode of Halftime Heroes on Wildcat Sports Live. Nathan Dunham here with you alongside Allyn Stockton, the host with the most. Brought to you by Stockton and Stockton Attorneys at Law, fellow broadcaster.
Yeah, we've got Hobie Jones here, the new voice of the Rabun County Wildcats on the radio.
Yeah.
How's that going? Is that, I know that's a new frontier for you.
Sky 96.3 FM, WRBN Clayton.
Wow.
WRBN Clayton. I really do enjoy it. I like it. I've always wanted to try it because I sort of grew up as a kid lying in bed with my dad late at night listening to AM radio sporting events. And I can remember a lot of great announcers, and I always thought, that'd be fun to try. And here at age 64, somebody said, would you be willing to give this a shot for us? And I really enjoy doing it.
By the way, what he just did was called station ID, and it's required at the top of every hour.
Another former radio person,
right. Yeah.
Which is where this show started out.
Yeah, we started out on the radio.
Yeah.
We're kind of on pirate radio, but it's still broadcast.
Everybody said we look better on radio.
For that one. Ever since I left radio, I've been told I have a face for radio. So, Hobie, you're doing a great job. I've been listening every week, and for someone to just kind of jump into it, I mean, I know you got a lot of football knowledge, but to actually speak to a live audience every Friday night.
Well, I appreciate it. I've never done it before, but the key things is all anybody's ever listened to a game on the radio is down, distance, what is the score,
yep,
and what direction is everybody going. And one thing I sort of picked up from, the god of this is Larry Munson. I think he's like, people have asked me, who are your favorite announcers? Well, there's Larry. And then nobody's
not really a close second.
Yeah, but I've just listened to so many different ones of them, and I just try to emulate them and just do it in my own voice. And it's kind of fun for a lawyer, and Allyn, you can identify to try to describe what you're watching. It's
like you're making a record.
It's an interesting challenge. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to do. The tough thing is the new roster every week for the other team. That's why I need a color guy.
And that segues beautifully into what I was about to say. The thing I'm most impressed about that I have never done broadcasting a football game is you mentioned the other team's players. So if you listen to me do it, it's like they don't exist.
It's like number 23.
They're lucky if they get a number.
Yeah, that's rule number one is if you say the number, follow it real fast with a name.
Yeah.
In other words, don't say the number. If you say that was number 17, everybody goes,
what does that mean?
You just told us nothing.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it. I enjoy trying to do it, and it's a fun little hobby here.
Who does it with you?
Joey Thompson is my color guy, but Joey's been in Israel for a couple of games, and Nathan Thompson, a high school student here, who's a stat geek and a good kid and a fun fella, and he knows the Rabun County roster in and out.
That's Jim and Lisa's son.
Okay.
Jim and Lisa's son. And
he does a good job.
He does a good,
for a high school.
Yeah, for a high school kid.
Gosh.
Yeah, he's not shy
but let
at
me
all.
tell you who he is. His dad. I've been trying to get his dad to come on here, and he's too shy to. So he definitely got that from his mama.
Nathan does a good job. He does a good job.
Does.
But I think of announcers I've listened to over the years, and some of them nobody will remember, but I think all you guys here are too young to remember this guy. But the guy before Munson at Georgia was a guy named Ed Thelenius, and people have forgotten him. But his last year doing Georgia games was 65, and he's the first guy I ever listened to that I can remember as about a 7 or 8 year old kid. I heard him, and I thought, I bet that'd be fun to do. And then Munson came the next year, and Thelenius went over and did Falcons games the first year. First year or two, they were a Falcon team. And then he did WAGA Sports in Atlanta, and then he passed away. But everybody's forgotten him largely. But your daddy would remember Ed Thelenius.
Well, the sign of just a superstar is that nobody remembers who came before you.
That's right.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Larry Munson, you don't remember anything about because it's like there wasn't a before him.
I can remember some other AM, Jack Buck, Joe Buck's daddy, who used to do Cardinal baseball games. Boy, he was great. I always felt like there was a guy that used to do LSU football. It came over one of those what they called a clear channel AM station named John Edwards in the 60s and 70s. Did LSU football. I always liked him. And a guy named K. Wood Ledford that did Kentucky sports out of University of Kentucky. You could get those late at night. And then Cosell. I listened to so many heavyweight fights on the radio because they weren't on TV. And Cosell, I remember listening to him doing those with my daddy. And then they started Monday Night Football. in the late
Groundbreaking.
yeah, it was just groundbreaking.
It's worked out for him too.
Yeah, and Cosell and Meredith and Keith Jackson were the first threesome on that Monday Night Football crew. They were great.
Hobie, not only do you know how to talk about football, but you knew how to play it too.
I like to play. That's what I would say. I would like to play, and everybody was a good high school player. but
especially before they had film and stats like for us.
That's right.
But you actually were good. I mean, you played your 9th and 10th grade years.
And here, I started as
County.
freshman here at quarterback in '72. We went 2-8. Then '73 we went 3-7. But there were a couple of guys on that team. The '73 team that went 3-7 started 3-1, and we were playing in that what would be AA league now with Pickens County, East Hall, Commerce, Jefferson, a tough league. And there were 2 really good players on that team. Randy Moore, who is Chuck Moore's big brother and older brother, and the uncle of Hunter, and a guy named Frankie Bullard, but they both got hurt kind of early that year because we depended on them so much. But that, Coach Rumsey and I used to talk, had that team stayed healthy and been a little deeper, and had we been playing in Class B, if we would have probably won a region in Class B, but we just didn't have had about 13 players that could play. Had a roster of probably 28, 29, but we're really thin.
But then your junior and senior year, moved to Habersham.
Played quarterback at Habersham, and we had some really good teams.
And you wound up in the Circle of Honor down there. Is that what they call it?
Well, that's what they call it. But we threw the ball a little bit more than other folks did back at that time. But there were some really good players down there. When I was a junior, Tavares King's daddy, Anthony King, was the back of the year in old AA, which would be probably about 6A now, 5 or 6A now.
Wow.
And he was later a tight end at Clemson and nearly came within a hair of making the Cleveland Browns roster. Anthony King, he was back of the year that year. And his son, Tavares, later was the back of the year. And I always thought they were the only father-son. But there were 2 other D1 players on that team. Terrell Osborne, who was an offensive lineman at Georgia Tech, was on that team. And a guy named John Butler, who played a year or 2 at Georgia Tech, was on that team. Coach was Fred McManus. He had lettered for Wally Butts at Georgia, and he was a very good coach and very sophisticated ideas about throwing the ball. He was sort of like Michael Davis. Throw it short and let them run it long. And he had a high percentage sort of passing game. We probably threw it 15 to 18 times a game, which back in those days was a lot.
Absolutely.
And
you were kind of the prototypical big, tall quarterback.
Yeah.
How tall were you?
6'4".
Yeah.
Went out my senior year, I was 6'4", 195, 196. But I had guys around me that made me look better than I probably was. Wasn't very fast, but I did like to play. And I like to play it all.
Like
Basketball,
if we're in any county's Ring of Honor, the plaque's right here for every show we do. Hi, I'm Nathan Dunham, Nathan County Ring of Honor recipient.
But yeah, I played with a lot of good players. A lot of those guys are coaches. Some of them are coaches now that I played with down there, or had coaching careers. And a lot of them gone on done very well in other things. But I am enjoying. I went to after that. I realized I wasn't going to be the next Johnny Unitas, so I went to the University of Georgia and then went to the University of Georgia Law School and practiced law in Peachtree City, Fayette County, Coweta County area for about 30 years, 25, 30 years, and moved back up here. And about 3 months ago, Gene Gill at the radio station said,
Gino,
somebody told me you might be interested or you could do the job of being the play-by-play guy. And I thought, boy, I'd like to give that a shot. Absolutely. I've always wanted to give that a shot. And
did you ever think you'd be calling games like, you said you listen to clear channel radio stations, but as complicated as the offenses are now, and receivers are X's and Y's.
It is a new game. I mean, they'll be first and goal on the 2 in the shotgun formation.
Yeah.
What? You got to have coaches that are just going, what are these people doing? 5 wideouts on the goal line.
Oh, yeah.
4 wideouts. Yeah, 5 on the goal line.
And motion and pulling guard, all that good
It is
stuff.
unbelievable. The new off-tackle play is a wide-out screen for 3 or 4 yards, which might break into 65 with this team.
Yeah, no kidding. He's giving us the sign.
Yeah, that's it.
It's
Good radio.
We're getting called in for supper.
Good radio man knows how to do a tight 10 right there. So, well, Hobie, thanks so much for coming on and
Thank
talking
you,
to
guys.
us.
And thanks for doing the announcing for the radio part.
I'm almost hate to take a thanks on that. I enjoy it so much, but I'm telling you, it's not all glory. There's a lot of lifting and carrying and setting up.
And driving.
Yeah, and driving.
And driving.
Oh, yeah. Last Friday, I was sitting in Atlanta traffic for about an hour, and I thought, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Good deal. Well, Hobie, thanks so much. Thanks again for tuning in for another episode of Halftime Heroes here on Wildcat Sports Live. As always, it's brought to you by Stockton and Stockton, attorneys at law, 706-782-6100. It's only off by 3.
One job.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys next week. Thanks, Hobie.